My father and my family and I bought this property, and initially my father loaned me 95% of the value of the property. The 2017 disclosure follows title, which essentially, if you looked in the public records, my entity, Glavin Investments, owned 100% of that. Upon passing, when my father passed away, that 95% was split up equally amongst me and my 4 siblings. And that was done through a agreement with my siblings. So in the subsequent year, essentially, I no longer owned and again, following title, and sold the property. I only owned 25% interest, which is 20% of the 95% plus the 5% that I initially owned. So that's the discrepancy. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question, we sold in total all of our interest in the land. We don't own any residual interest in the property. We never had an interest in the development, the business, or anything else that's associated with that. So I just wanted to come down here and clarify that, because I know there have been some questions about that.
Thank you, Controller. I appreciate your speaking today. And I know, that much has been made of this. And first of all, as your father was very close to some of us, we're with you in the troubling nature of some of the timing of this. Is there anything about the timeline that we've dwelled on now for quite a bit this morning that you'd like to comment about?
I haven't heard all of the discussion, but I also just want to make the general comment that, as an elected involved in this process, the duty of me is to recuse myself from the process. And I think that was the proper course of action. So I didn't have any contact with anybody. I did the public disclosure as was required by law. I got a legal opinion that clearly identified that there were no conflicts of interest. So I feel very confident that I've done everything that I needed to do in this transaction. So I just wanted to make that a public
Thanks for coming
statement.
down, and appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Brown, am I to understand that this property had originally been a property of your father's and it was part of his estate?
No, it was actually a property that he and I bought together while he was living. But
it was investment property.
It was an investment property. And my father and I had, as you all know, a close relationship. He was an architect. And over the years, we did projects together. And it was a family business kind of investment thing. And that's something that we've done over the years. So.
I believe the purchaser of the property was the Kildare Operating Group. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yes.
And had you ever done business with them before?
No, never even knew them, and in fact, only met them once in my life.
All right.
But did exchange emails throughout the course of the thing, but had never met them before.
I don't know that you had the opportunity to hear the director, but the director gave us a general timeline, and during that timeline, he indicated that at some point in time after the 9% tax credit application had begun, and I assume, first of all, that the part of the sales price was part of the 9% tax credit monies as well. Is that correct?
I don't know. I had no involvement with the tax credit. I know nothing about that process.
All right. So he indicated that at some point in time, between the time period in which the applicant made the application for the 9% tax credit and by October, the housing department became aware that an elected official had an ownership interest in this and related to the IG, the Inspector General's office, mm-hmm. of the city attorney's office.
And I wasn't even aware there was an OIG inquiry into this. The only thing that I actually even became aware about this was, I think, on October 3rd, legal sent me a letter and said, you need to file this disclosure because there's an agenda item coming up. And let me be clear, too, from the beginning, from this particular process, I told the developer that I am an elected, so I cannot have any involvement in this. So.
You were never aware that the Office of Inspector General was looking into the matter?
No.
Mr. Director, I'll come to you in just a second.
I was never contacted by them.
Just a second.
I want to clarify something that I misstated earlier. It was the email came from the legal department, not the Office of Inspector General. I want to clarify that, which I think maybe addresses this confusion. So let me retract what I said earlier. I would just received information that it was indeed the legal office that sent the memo.
Thank you for that clarification. For the public's information, the Inspector General is a division of the City Attorney's Office, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be the connection between those two. So you had never been apprised that an Inspector General was doing a review of your ownership interest?
I wasn't even aware that the developer had sought any type of financing for this property, because when we initiated this, the discussion was that he was doing private financing.
Did you place this particular transaction in a blind trust? Or any form of a trust? No. Was there any other person that was handling the transaction for you other than yourself?
No, just me.
All right. So you were never aware that the purchaser was about to receive or asking to receive tax credit? Tax credit, I think, is the state. I think, and pardon my ignorance. It all goes through here, Mr. Brown.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And once you received the information from the Inspector General, you made a disclosure on this particular item.
From the, let's say, legal department, because I got an email from legal. Again, I had no...
Okay, I'll say the
You're
legal
using
department.
those maybe interchangeably, but I wasn't aware there was any...
And that requirement was for you to file an report
public
with the
disclosure
with the county, not the city.
With the county.
Because that is the appropriate legal entity for which that to happen, I assume.
Records. I guess. I think that's right.
All right. Mr. Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I just want to make sure I understand this properly. So you said that this property was divided up between you and your siblings, so then you had a 25% interest. Was there any kind of paperwork filed either with housing or the county clerk stating that you no longer had 100% interest in this property?
Well, I filed the 25% interest disclosure that I was selling, so that was the disclosure. The county clerk's office.
Okay.
And that was 20 days, I believe, before the sale and 14 days before the council vote, roughly.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever attempt to communicate to council or to the administration that you had an ownership interest in that particular property?
No.
Oh, thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Brown. We appreciate your attendance.